Hello and welcome to Diplomatic Perspective on Global Television. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Stay with me as I bring you an all-angle perspective of global issues. Beginning from Russia, as they call for West to lift sanctions on Afghanistan. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called for the West to lift sanctions on Taliban-led Afghanistan and take responsibility for reconstruction efforts in the country. But Lavrov did not say whether Moscow would lift its own designation of the group as a terrorist organization. The Taliban has been under Western sanctions for more than 2 decades. Measures have initially been taken, and of course, there are certain sanctions that has been imposed to restrict the financing of Al-Qaeda and other organizations designated terrorist groups. As a matter of fact, Moscow has forced a relationship with the Taliban since the return to power in 2021, following the use of withdrawal from the war-ravaged country. And now to the United States, where a storm death toll surpasses 200. More than 200 people are confirmed dead after Hurricane Helene carved a path of destruction through several southeastern U.S. states. Officials have actually said that, making it the second deadliest storm to hit the U.S. mainland in more than half a century, despite hundreds of rescues across 6 states. And the animal's response, including more than 10,000 federal personnel assisting local responders. The death toll from the sprawling storm is expected to rise, with many residents still unaccounted for in a mountainous region known for its pockets of isolation. And now let's talk about the demonstration in Austria against the far right after its success in the national elections. Between 15,000 and 17,000 people demonstrated in central Vienna. And according to organizers, against the possible return to power of the far right Instra after national election. And as I speak to you, it has come to the state that Austria Freedom Party come out on top. The FPÖ is a danger because it has already said it wants to govern in the image of Viktor Orban in Hungary. And now let's get to the war-prone areas, talking about Hamas, as they say Israel-Lebanon strike kills commander. A family of Palestinian militant group Hamas said an Israeli strike killed one of its commanders in a refugee camp in North Lebanon. The first time the area had been hit since the start of the Gaza war. Israel has repeatedly targeted Hamas officials in Lebanon since the Gaza war erupted almost a year ago. And Hamas has announced the death of at least 18 of its militants in Lebanon since then. And then let's get back to August, where an Israeli strike on a vehicle in the South Lebanon city of Sidon that killed Hamas commander Sama al-Hajj. Lebanon's dozen Palestinian refugee camps were created for those who were driven out or fled during the 1948 war that accompanied Israel's creation. The United Nations official pledges support for Somalia as it faces challenges, including the election that is forthcoming, and during a Security Council meeting that was held, the head of the United Nations Assistance Mission in Somalia vowed that the United Nations would stand by Somalia as the country faces challenges, including upcoming elections. The United Nations is committed to supporting Somalia as it addresses technical, logistical, and of course other challenges, and mobilizes financial support for donors in order to deliver timely and credible elections. That is a statement that came from James Swan, the acting special representative for Somalia and head of the United Nations Assistance Mission in Somalia. But it will also interest you to know that the country is waging an offensive against the jihadist group called Al-Shabaab, which has already created out a string of bombing across Somalia in the past 17 years. In July, the group launched a car bomb attack in capital, killing several people. And that's going to be the information coming on the global scene. Right now, let's get to the discussion proper, where my guest is already seated. He is an international economist, and he will be talking to us about some foreign policies and how it relates with the economy of a nation, because we are already going global with some issues around the world. So you will join us as we get to the discussion segment, and that's going to be after this break. So many thanks for staying with us on Diplomatic Perspective. The economy of Nigeria, not just Nigeria and other countries, have faced a lot of hitches in recent times. And today we want to talk about the impact of Nigeria's foreign policy on the economy. And I have with me right here Adefolarin Olamilekan. He's an international political economist. It's good to have you on the program today, Olamilekan.
Thanks for having me. A very good morning to all of you outside.
You don't know what exactly is foreign policy. So what's foreign policy?
I think we just make it simple, not the ambiguous academic definition of foreign policy. Foreign policy simply means promotion and protection of national interests. And when we talk about promotion and protection of national interests, we're talking about the aspect of the economy of a particular country, the aspect of the military capability of a particular country. You're talking about the aspect of education of a particular country. You're talking about the aspect of a culture, the aspect of environment protection of a particular country. So foreign policy summarize the entire subject as well as subsector of a particular country in the areas of what the country wants to achieve and what the country wants to obtain as it relates with other countries. So from a simplified angle of what is foreign policy is actually promotion and protection of national interest. So that national interest could be broadened, it could also be reduced into sub and subsector of what the country wants to achieve. But from the academic perspective of what is foreign policy, it is defined as the behavior of a particular country against or outside its own shore. That means the way the country behaves with other countries, what it intends to achieve by relating, by engaging with other countries at the international level. So it is regarded as the state actors as well as behavior of state at the international environment. And this is related to what I earlier pointed out, protecting the national interests of a particular country. So if you see a country behaving in a particular way, meaning that they want to promote their national interests, they want to promote their education, their culture, their sport, their entertainment, their movies, and whatever. And that's what foreign policy is all about, protecting your national interests at every time on international global stage.
Now, meaning, if I get you rightly, you're talking about the fact that this foreign policy is something that has been done for a purpose, maybe probably for the development of the economy of a nation, something that will interest the nation.
Exactly.
Let's talk about Nigeria now and other countries. So can you give us an overview of Nigeria's economy development?
I think to look at Nigerian economic development, we have to go back to recall back to memory lane. Historically, the Nigeria was colonized by the British, and when we are getting independence in 1960, the British hand over an economy that was less productive to us, just a monocultural economy that depends on raw material production, that depends on agriculture. So going forward, after then, by 1963, Nigeria became a republic and began to marshal out our own economic development policy. And that's when we now had the first national development plan that was to spread between 1958 to 1968. Then thereafter, we had the military coup that intervened in our politics, and the military also turned around the Nigerian economy and began to use decree to control Nigeria as well as to rule Nigeria. So that was also have an impact on our development. And by 1970, Nigeria discovered oil. So Nigeria was so rich with oil. And thereafter, 1979, we also have military regime, civilian regime coming into power 1979 to 1983. But by 1985, there was also a military coup. And there was 86, there was also a military coup. From 1986 to 1999, we have been under military. So economy also passed through the decree ruling impact of the military. So it affected our development, particularly economy. And again, by 1986, there was this argument about SAP, the Structural Adjustment Program, that wanted to open Nigeria economy up for international. And that was when we begin to add issue about free market economy, where government need to commercialize and privatize most of the commanding height of the Nigerian economy. And that really affected government participation in the business of economy. And by 1999, when civilian government came in, we also have issues whereby the economy need to be opened up. And at the end of the day, the economy was opened up, government also privatized and commercialized some of the commanding height of the economy. And the summary is that the economic development of Nigeria, though growing in terms of the technical aspect of the figures, the numbers, but the reality is that it's quite different from answering the question of what has happened to unemployment, what has happened to development in terms of road infrastructure, what has happened to education, what has happened to health, and what has also happened to some key sector and subsector of the economy, which we normally talk about poverty alleviation, talk about skills development, capacity of Nigerians. It has not really given Nigerians the so-called to say that the economy has really developed as the people desire it to be. Although on the global scale, Nigeria is regarded as one of the emerging economies in Africa, and one of the leading most populous Black African country, with potentials for raw materials, over 42 different raw materials deposited in the ground of Nigeria. And so far so good. It has been a mixed reaction. Although from the elite angle, you can see that the elite are quite aware of Nigerian economic development, but the poor people are always feeling it. Currently, as we speak right now, the economy is not smiling as expected.
That's obvious. That's obvious.
On ground.
So we're talking about government policy. Every government policy should have objective. So let me just say, what are the objectives of Nigeria's foreign policy? And not just that, we should also be considering the fact that these foreign policies need to support the economy.
Exactly. I'm talking about Nigerian foreign policy objective. In section 19 of the 1999 Constitution, has already stipulated what would be Nigerian foreign policy objective. But in looking at the objective, we also need to look at the principles, because the principle guides the objective. The objective is the goals. Now, the principle talks about promotion of national interest of the federation, including state and subnational government. The promotion of their national interest must be there. Then also talk about promotion of African integration as well as African unity. Also talk about non-alignment, because Nigeria need not to be in any fora to support any power, either the US bloc or the Russian bloc. That is non-alignment to any major power across the world. Then they also call for opportunity for Nigeria to support Africa and to assist African countries. And that's why in 1986, between 1970 to 1986, there was this Afrocentric foreign policy of Nigeria, which by focus on how to develop Africa and support major African countries. You know, earlier I did mention that when Nigeria discovered oil, we are so rich. One of the African support that we give was when Nigeria deposited over $80 million to support African Development Bank. And that was some long time ago. You can see how rich Nigeria was at that point.
That money, were they given that money for free, or is to yield interest for Nigeria?
I think it was part of when African Development Bank was established. So Nigeria was a big boy at that time.
So they had a big deposit.
You know, at that point, Nigeria organized several foreign Festac 77, Cup of Nations, different sport programs was organized, and Nigeria supported a lot of decolonization programs across Africa, including the anti-apartheid programs in South Africa. Nigeria was in support. In Zimbabwe, the same thing. So many African countries that were under colonialism in 1780, Nigeria supported them to be decolonized.
But then, if Nigeria had done all this support in the time past, looking at what Nigeria is going through right now, which is as a result of both local and foreign policies, why are we not getting support from other countries that we've supported before in the past?
Definitely we are getting support. It may not be financial support as we give them in the time past. It may not be, but we are also getting moral support. You can see currently Nigeria is fighting terrorism around the West African Sahara. Chad, Niger, Mali, they have given us support to also quench that aspect. They talk about African free trade movement, whereby Nigerian businesses are doing so well. You go to Zimbabwe, go to Ghana, go to Cote d'Ivoire, you see Nigerian banks, which you can categorize from international political economy as transnational organizations like the Dangote of this world. They are over there in South Africa, they are in West Africa, establishing their factory and their businesses. It's as a result of Nigerian government, going out there to give support to all those African countries. And reciprocal, they also give back that support to Nigeria. That's why you see that business is being established. And as earlier pointed out, the objective of the foreign policy was also to promote national interest. That's one. To also ensure that Nigerians obey international law and treaties. Nigeria also support what they have been regarded as world economy just. A just world economy. Meaning that every country across the world should enjoy equal representation, equal recognition in terms of when it comes to economy, and also respect for Nigerian sovereignty. Those are the objectives. And this objective guide our national economic policy. As Nigeria do its businesses outside Nigeria, these are the objectives that guide it, alongside the principles I earlier mentioned in this discussion. So it's so important that we need to understand that the economy of Nigeria need to be tied to a just and very productive foreign policy. And that's where it comes into the understanding that Nigerian foreign policy must be aligned, must be a nexus or link to our economic relationship with other countries.
Okay, this is diplomatic perspective. So let's talk about diplomacy a little bit. Let me take you to another question right now, because we need to know this. What are the problems of economic diplomacy? Because this is a diplomatic perspective.
Exactly.
Just give us your own perspective of it. Let's get a perspective of it.
I think one of the things we need to understand about economic diplomacy is that before economic diplomacy is deployed outside there, a country needs to prepare in two ways. One is that it's either have an inward-oriented economic diplomacy or economic foreign policy, or an outward-oriented economic diplomacy or economic foreign policy. What it means is that if you practice an inward economic diplomacy or foreign policy, it means that you are going to protect your economy. You're going to protect the infant industries and the rest of them. Now, if you now practice the outward one, then you are going to allow your economy to be open for other businesses to come in and the other investors to come in. And that has been what Nigeria has practiced over the 64 years of our independence. A mix of inward economy-oriented diplomacy and foreign policy, as well as a mix of outward economic diplomacy and foreign policy. Meaning that we have, at the time, restricted our economic policies in a way that we protect our industries, and currently we also allow for inward importation of other businesses into the economy. So it has paid us a good omen year and a good maybe a negative year, positive side, because when you open your economy too much, as we have now, it's all import dependent, and that has affected us a lot because the government was not too proactive in ensuring that they protect the infant industries. On the other hand, we have had several investors come into the economy, investing, building plants here and there, but the question is that how much of that has affected the economy? Because most of those foreign companies that are coming, they want to repatriate some of the dollars, some of the foreign currency they are making, and that's always caused a shock to our balance of trade in international businesses.
All right, that has caused a lot of short in balance of trade in the international community. Now let's talk about this a little bit. Our president has been up and doing, traveling, maybe for business, warring businesses into Nigeria and all of that. Now let's look at this critically right now. What is your own assessment of President Tinubu's the shuttle diplomacy to China, to other countries of the world?
I think it simply is to sustain what has been happening since 1999. President Tinubu will not be the first and will not be the last. We had the likes of Obasanjo did the same shuttle diplomacy. We had it was only Yar'Adua that didn't do shuttle diplomacy because he didn't stay long on the power. Jonathan also did shuttle diplomacy to go around the world. Buhari did the same thing.
But do we have impacts coming from this shuttle diplomacy?
I think currently what we normally enjoy from those shuttle diplomacy is to receive grants, to receive investors, and also had the opportunity to get some loans, some freebies, as we normally call it, in lush fund on a global international market, whereby country would feel that they have much money to invest in your country. Come, give you some grant, give you some aid, give you some money to invest in your country. Like the last trip that the President Tinubu went to China, they talk about power, they talk about environment, they talk about construction of road, they talk about housing, they also talk about areas of investment, security, technology that China can add opportunity to invest. And again, not forget mining, which Chinese is also very interested. So those are the areas that the diplomatic shuttle of President Tinubu focus on, and that is to draw the Chinese government, investors, as well as other parties, stakeholders into Nigerian economy so they can support the economy, build factory, and engage in businesses, which is quite good. But the long run is that we should also guide against such diplomacy, because at the end of the day, the people must be the general benefit, because as the objective say, protection of national interest, which is the major objective, must be adhered to. And protecting national interest means that the economy must be open in a way that the people must benefit. And the protection of subnational government in a way that the people must benefit. And that's what it means. So we must guide against it so that it will not be abused. Because we have had in the past whereby we lure investment into the country. At the end of the day, most of them abuse the opportunity that have been given to them. And the economy was not too good for it.
So now, let me ask, because this is getting very interesting right now. It is still diplomatic perspective. And let's look at this perspective now. Let's look at this issue from a perspective. Now, how can the nexus of the foreign policy and, of course, domestic policy succeed? Because all these things, we need to look at their success, no matter what's been done. These policies, sometimes people put forth these policies and they don't even follow through to see the success of this policy. So what do you think? What's your opinion?
For me, first and foremost, most foreign policy that lead to economic issues need to be reviewed critically.
Okay.
Because most times when government go out there to go and discuss economic issues in relation to a foreign policy, we discover that most of those economic policies are based on individual caprice and wine, in the sense that they are just thinking about themselves. For instance, when you talk about government, like the president going to China now and go and discuss about electricity power generation in Nigeria. Now, the companies that will be coming in, they also have their people that are here. So we must look at it from the angle of how does that initiative benefit ordinary Nigerians and how do we sustain it? So if we don't have the opportunity to sustain it and we don't also have the willpower to ensure that it benefits the ordinary Nigerians, that means that policy will fail, or it has failed from the beginning. So for me, it's a critical look at those economic policies that are linked to our foreign policy. As I earlier pointed out, foreign policy is about promotion and protection of your national interest. And national interest boils down or goes down to the ordinary citizen, not just for the elite at the top of the city or in the hierarchy of the society. Because most times you discover that most of the interests at the end of the day just benefit the elite in the society, but doesn't benefit the ordinary people. A lot of grants, a lot of money have been collected as a result of our foreign policy in the economy. But ask me, does the ordinary Nigerian benefit from those such grants? That's where the question is. So we must be able to critically look at our relationship in terms of the foreign policy in the economy to benefit the ordinary people. As it is benefiting the elite, let it also benefit ordinary Nigerians going forward. So
as an international political economist now, what would you have to say? Because the way Nigeria is right now, there's no, you don't need anyone to tell you that there's hunger in the land. You know, people are suffering. Now, what do you think the country can do, okay, to salvage this situation using diplomacy? Okay, and international relations, because some persons will tell you maybe by this time international organizations should be interfering into what's happening in Nigeria, or maybe intervene as the case may be. But then is it because maybe the policies or the constitution does not allow that, or you feel Nigeria does not merit that?
I think we need to take example from what China did and what some young Asian tigers country did. What they did was the government selected some various commanding knights of the economy and invested in it. And what did they do by that? They invested in it to open the economy for their people in a much way like an inward economy policy development. And that's really helped them. But in our own case, we have opened up our economy. People are coming in, and that's why we have challenge of tariff. That's why we have challenge of forex, and that's why we have challenge of pricing. Because the national price on goods is also transmitted because we are now import dependent. But when a country or the government look at how they can ensure that they also have a company, they participate in the business, because we always say let's open the economy, let's have free market economy, but it doesn't work to affect the ordinary people as we expect it to be, because the elite will always benefit first before it trickle down to the ordinary people. But what I'm trying to say is that government should be concerned about businesses, how to provide services, as well as, even if it is welfare service for the people, government should be concerned, because developing countries that we are looking at, that is what they prioritize. Now, people are complaining about high cost of food. In the US, for example, the government participates in how food is produced. They are not just giving subsidy for farmers alone. They also watch and evaluate how the food is produced. But here in Nigeria, government gives subsidy, government gives palliative for farmers, but they don't even check how much of this food has been produced. In China, the same thing. The Chinese government mentor businesses. In Nigeria, we also do that, but we only throw money at the small businesses. We don't go back to
no supervision.
No supervision. So these are what developed countries are doing that has helped them to be able to gather momentum at international level. So most times when our president or people travel about to go and say they want to go and check what is being done in other countries, they show them what they are doing. When they come back here,
they do something different.
Do something else. So
all right.
In that regard, in closing, because I know you're about to close down, we should look at our foreign policy in terms of economic, in terms of the designing, the implementation, and the outcome. That will help us to be able to gather strength and be able to impact our economy judiciously.
All right, thank you very much. This is the voice. My guest in the studio today, like I told you, is an international political economist, and you can see the way he's given us the breakdown of everything. Thank you very much, Adefolarin Olamileko, for coming on Diplomatic Perspective today. We hope to have you some other time.
Thanks for
and that's going to be the size of Diplomatic Perspective today. I believe you have known what it means for the foreign policy of a country to have impact on its economy, taking Nigeria as a case study. We'll come on your way again, same time, same station. And of course, my name is Ramsey Enoch. I will have a beautiful day ahead of you. Bye-bye for now.